one scene would feel like it came out of like a romantic comedy, another movie would feel like it came out of like a crime movie, and then, you know, by the end it kind of ends up somewhere as like a horror thriller.
Oh, okay, let's shoot it.
Okay, we go. Ready?
Action! Now, hey, we're starting on gun.
Oh, so I should have my mask on.
On action. Bang. Cut!
Welcome to the Get the Girl Shoot. You guys have been kicking ass, so we're going to continue that tradition tonight.
Yeah. Great. Shoot a movie here.
Thank you. Bye.
Overslept.
He was asleep.
Overslept, yeah, I figured.
This idea just really jumped out at me, and I was taking meetings trying to do some stuff that was a little different from, you know, my average horror movie or, you know, darker material, which this still falls into, but I really wanted to do something that was driven a lot more by comedy. And when Graham told me the idea for this story about a guy who kidnaps a girl on purpose in order to try and look like a hero, that just sounded like comedy to me.
About 3 years ago, I had the idea for the film. I told him about it, and here we are. And I hope the movie comes out awesome. I'm sure it will. The script is great. I know Eric is going to do really wonderful things with it, and so far everybody on the casting crew seems really awesome. So here's hoping.
When I was considering the idea and trying to develop the story in my head, it was really just about how to make something that seems so implausible feel real. That was probably the biggest challenge. And, you know, thankfully with things like the internet today, you hear in the news these crazy ass stories of people doing the craziest shit. And so it made sense to me that this movie could work.
Mike, can we get camera up so we can do dry runs?
Yeah.
Hey bro, you be biking it, you hold it up.
Uh-huh.
We could do it then.
Yeah.
So you're like
Maybe I'll help
absolutely
you.
making sure, like,
Can
hey,
we
you be
look
biking it, you know, and you're, you know,
Rather?
you want to do it
I don't
then?
think it's
Save it for the foyer?
Well, the only thing is it's going to be a lot of business. It's going to be all this, and
Yeah, but we're
and
on
then it's
you
going to
for
be
that moment.
the coat too.
Yeah, you know, I think the characters in the screenplay are probably my favorite part of writing it. Probably what attracted me to the initial idea. You know, when Graham was telling me about the story, he had a version of the characters in his head, and I kind of started from scratch in that regard. I wanted to find kind of the characters I thought fit in the world for the film that I saw. And it started first with Clarence and Alex. You know, I wanted this kind of romanticized idea of this guy who thought that he could do anything, or he would do anything in his power to get this girl, essentially. And I found, you know, again, I found it creepy, but kind of romantic in a weird way.
I'm Justin Dobies. I'm playing Clarence in the movie. We're having a great time. Should be really good. It's the first time first time I've ever been beat this bad in my life. I don't know. We're having a great time.
Are you gonna get the girl?
Let's hope so. Am I gonna get the girl, Beth?
I guess you'll have to wait and see.
And then with Alex, this girl is such a fighter and such a survivor, and I'm kind of drawn to strong female characters. So for me, you know, I didn't want her to be a passive character, and I think you know, Beth really brought something really special to that side of the character, which I think is really unique.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Whitson, and I'm playing Alexandra in Get the Girl. I think the film's gonna be incredible. We're having a really fun time, and it's the first time I ever got shot in the ass with a gun.
Run! KJ! She's mine. You go find Clarence.
That's where Patrick came in. It was all about finding that kind of what's that driving force for the conflict.
Everybody.
Oh, hi. Talk to you two. How are you? That was so nice. He was like, hey, Eric, and I look and it's Noah Segan coming down the stairs. Kiss me.
You know, and that became Patrick. And with Patrick, I was really inspired by, which is probably no secret, I was really inspired by like a Tyler Durden in Fight Club. I wanted this guy who felt like he had all the answers, and even though he was a bit of a sleazebag, you felt like he could pull off what he said he could pull off. And what's funny to me is over the course of the movie, you realize that this guy doesn't have his shit together at all. He starts off as this suave, good-looking dude who is smooth talking, and by the end of the movie, he's just utter shit, and I thought that was really interesting. And then, and Noah plays that character really well. When it came to figuring out the kidnappers, that was a really interesting challenge in the writing process of figuring out what types of people would be convinced to kidnap someone. That's a tall order. So instantly I had this idea of putting another girl in the mix.
Hey, will you call KJ? I mean, Selena, and get down here and help me?
I will in a second.
Please tell me you're not done with that.
I've never fucking duct taped anyone before. Go!
And it was interesting to kind of figure that out, with Scout Compton's character. Scout is an actress I've always been a fan of. I've seen her in a lot of horror movies, and I wanted to see her play something different. She was really excited to take on, that challenge. And she's been acting for a long time, so she's played a million different characters, which is cool. And when it came to this one, in the writing phase, there were a lot of different avenues that I explored. Like at one point, Clarence's character was gonna, fall in love with Scout's character, Jade. We ended up not going that route, but I always thought it was interesting to have another girl in the mix, from a kind of an attraction standpoint, but also just as kind of a sounding board for Alex's character to eventually, take advantage of. And once I made the connection of Scout's character being involved with Noah's character, Patrick, I think that's when a lot of things clicked for me. I was like, okay, now I have more motives, now I have more intentions, now I have more hidden agendas, because that was just a nice distraction from the actual twist in the movie. So Scout's character became really, really important. And then when it came down to, because she's kind of along for the ride because Patrick is. So outside of those core characters, you have essentially the main kidnappers, which is Addie Shankar's KJ, Jerry Perpdrank's character of Embry, and James A. Baer's character of Carl. And they were probably the most fun to ride, especially KJ, because they were just sheer sociopaths, essentially. Carl's a coke addict, who's essentially just doing it for, the money, and he's there to like do a job. And he kind of struck me as this guy that was like, he was essentially a good soldier, but he had no respect for Patrick, and I really liked that conflict that presented.
See, that's what you call dedication right here. That's what you call dedication.
Right? He already promised me his firstborn son.
Where are you going to have a producer?
Yeah, you could, but if we break that wouldn't be good.
So what if I
If you can knock those...
Swipe that off?
Can we sit the candles
Is
where
it this
be...
fun? And then maybe
you
grab
can
that
get
one?
So yeah, if you could swipe...
This doesn't break?
At the end, I think KJ's knocking that over when he comes crashing down the stairs or something.
Okay, I would totally break that.
And with Embry's the guy who's like the co-pilot, but in my opinion, he's probably the smartest guy in the group. He's the one who's like taking everyone's phones and basically laying out a lot of the blueprints for how the kidnapping is going to go down. And sadly, he dies first, which I thought was kind of funny. And then KJ's character was just an absolute wildfire. To me, he was the character who brought chaos into the mix.
Addie, you should have stopped already. So, because the idea is you see him and you stop. He's like, no, got it.
In my opinion, a lot of the direction I gave Addie on set, he was in his own action movie. He was like, he thought this was the coolest thing in the world, like he was in a video game. And anytime he found a gun, he wanted to shoot it, and any chance he had to, you know, destroy something, he would take it. So he was a really, really interesting character to write, and his objective is just that, sheer chaos. So, you know, you have to love a character that's just nothing but exploitation.
That was awesome!
I had an idea for the visual style of the movie. It was kind of affected by just most normal circumstances. You get to the location, you get to the actors, you start feeling the scenes out, and then everything changes. You know, I know for a fact we ended up using the Steadicam a lot more than I had initially anticipated because of time. So, you know, when you start getting in the mix and seeing how the ebbs and flows are of the scenes, I think you can kind of adjust. But at least for the first half of the movie, I wanted it to be a little more stylized, a little more fluid. I tend to do a lot of handheld because I think it's a little bit more freeing, you know, as a filmmaker to be able to follow actors and watch them perform. And I think it's a little more intimate and a little more engaging, but it doesn't always, you know, work for the type of story you're telling. For the first half of this movie, it's very much like a, you know, romantic comedy, and I think we wanted to not shoot it like a romantic comedy, but we wanted to kind of be static and a little more stylized. And then as we get into the kidnapping, the idea was to make it a little more reckless and get more handheld and get more loose. The lighting progressively gets darker as lights are going out in the house, and you know, so I think naturally it evolved, you know, on its own, and it's fun to kind of watch the movie with that mindset and watch it start off with these bright, vibrant colors and these steady, fluid camera moves, and then over the course of the movie it gets darker and looser and more handheld.
Unless you, actually I'll be right there. I'll hold that because that's going to be like super wide.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you can be right here, moving with him.
So this will be like 16 to 20, somewhere in that range?
Yeah.
And you know, we tried to shoot wider lenses for the more comedic stuff, and we tried to shoot tighter lenses for the more dramatic and intense stuff, which, you know, looking back, I don't know if that was just kind of a formulaic way of doing things, but you know, I think it worked, and you know, there's some scenes and some shots in this movie that I'm really happy with, and I think there's some of my favorite that I've done. And Mike did a really good job. You know, it was a fun challenge for Mike, my cinematographer. You know, we had only done a few projects together, but only one feature film. And it was fun to kind of flex our muscles together a little bit and try, you know, a new genre and a new type of story in a way that we hadn't before. So, you know, immediately after I finished writing the screenplay, I started thinking about how I wanted to shoot it, and thankfully Mike was on the same page with me, and, you know, we were in sync. Tough times on set. I think the toughest times were just dealing with a lot of the effects. You know, you've got actors that are, you know, Beth had to fall from a balcony. You know, she got shot in the ass with essentially like a blood paintball that ricocheted off the padding for her. Beth, I love you. Thank you for all your contributions to the movie. You know, we've got people getting thrown into pools. Justin, I love you for that. You know, we had our stunt guy, Henry, was fucking incredible. We had Clay, who was our firearm guy. When you've got actors dealing with guns and stunts and shit like that, like there's always some stuff that's gonna go wrong. And then, you know, thankfully no one got drastically hurt. You know, we got a few bumps and bruises, which is to be expected on a movie like this. We got locked out of the set on day 3. I remember that. The owner of the house came home and saw blood all over the floor and bullet holes in the walls, and got really pissed and locked the doors and told us we couldn't come back. We were shooting guns at 10 o'clock at night in Brentwood, which is a very affluent neighborhood in Los Angeles. You can only shoot guns to a certain point in the night. I think it was like 10 o'clock. And unfortunately, we were shooting nothing but nights on this movie, so we could only shoot for like 4 hours with guns, and then we had to either fake it or do it really fast and hope we didn't get arrested. We didn't have permits for certain driving scenes. We had to go drive through LA and get certain shots without getting pulled over and arrested. We actually did get pulled over while driving some kidnapping driving shots. So we're driving through LA with neon blue lights in the back of a van that looks like kids are kidnapped in, and you know, a bunch of people wearing masks inside. I'm sure the officer didn't think too fondly of that. We had to shoot everything really fast and really chaotic, which, you know, I think helps with the nature of the movie, thankfully. Trying to think if there are any other really big ones. Oh yeah, day one, first real shot of the movie. Our producer drove a van into the gate, damaged the picture car, probably lost our deposit on the rental. But thankfully it was a producer driving, so couldn't get pissed at anyone else.
You sure you want to do that again? I mean, yeah, I'd like to. Just don't cut it as hard.
No. The problem is, this doesn't open up. I'm afraid of hitting this.
Don't worry about hitting the gate. I'd rather you hit the gate than the thing. I'd rather you bump the gate with the front bumper than the body of the van.
All right, you want to pull that back out?
Yeah, let's do it one more time. And no matter what, that's it. Cool? Teston's fixing the lights.
Yeah, do mine.
Okay.
Yeah. Guide me, Eric, guide me.
I want to see you get
Perhaps we can open the gate a little bit sooner.
Yeah,
Because the problem is,
I can do that.
Yeah, I was told.
Just don't worry about hitting the gate. I'm fine if you hit the gate.
No, I don't want to hit the gate. Well, if you hit the gate, it's just a bump. Like the gate's going back anyway. This one.
Thankfully, we have insurance.
Guide me, Eric. Yeah. Are the windows down? Back up.
Is that a new van?
Yeah.
It was.
So that was fun. We did something terrible, and our effects guy probably wanted to kill me because of it. Vinny, I love you. We ended up shooting a lot of our effects at the very end of the day, which is a big no-no. But it was because we didn't have a lot of time, so if we got blood everywhere, we couldn't really fix it and still make our day. So thankfully, Vincent was great and was so prepared and so on top of his shit that we never really had to redo anything. But it definitely became a challenge, trying to shoot people's heads off and stuff at the end of the night, hoping that it didn't go wrong. We actually, that's actually a great story. There's one scene where Carl gets shot in the head. Spoiler, hopefully everyone's seen the movie before they watch Cody's movie. We ended up shooting James in the head, and the blood was supposed to go on the wall behind him, so we prepped everything behind the bed to get blood on it. And I think the positioning of his head, something happened, and it ended up going all off to the right, where we hadn't planned. Everywhere we didn't put safety precautions and measures to keep the blood, it went everywhere we didn't expect it to, which is usually the case in blood. And so my incredible crew, associate producers, art department, everyone on that side of the fence stayed way too long to clean the blood up in that room and restore it back to normal. And hopefully the people who own that house will never know that many murders took place in their house.